Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in with a My Hero Academia video. This time specifically, it's a video covering a theory that I was told about on livestream. And this video is part of the Who is Eri series. I decided to put this one in there because this has to do with Eri and it would work out. It would work out. Anyway, the gist of the theory is, Eri is the one who changed Nightaye's Foresight. Some of the reasons being that Rewind probably affected time, or that Rewind changing Izuku was too much for Foresight to keep up with, or that Foresight didn't work because Nighteye hadn't encountered Rewind. In this video, I'm going to tell you my personal thoughts, my personal bias, my personal opinion on the matter, and I just want to let you know, I am covering a general theory. I do not know the specifics because there are as many individualized theories as there are people willing to make them. So with that out of the way, let's get into it and let me break it down from my perspective. My thoughts on the matter: this probably isn't the case, not fully. I think Eri using Rewind had an impact on the future, but it would have the same impact as Izuku's actions. The future wasn't solely changed due to Rewind. Rewind isn't at the center of this. I think it's much more likely that Izuku is. So first things first, let's address the most fundamental problem. If I told you that Nighteye's hypothesis about the energy that comes from wishing is correct, can you disprove that? What if I tell you that it's one for all that specifically causes the timey-wimey shenanigans? Can you disprove that? Furthermore, can you disprove the Eri angle in general? This is the fundamental problem. There isn't enough concrete evidence any which way to disprove any of the three hypotheses, but there's evidence that could support them. And this situation all comes from vagueness. If we knew exactly where the future deviated, it would be easier to spot and figure out which of these three approaches it possibly could be. That said, there's some implied information that makes the Eri solution unlikely, and we're going to get into that right now. Here's the first line of thought that I've encountered. Because Rewind is based on time, it interferes with Foresight. Now, as an idea, this is a pretty cool power interaction, but we gotta question a few things. How certain are we that Rewind is strictly a time quirk and not a quirk that reverts states? For instance, Shizaki brings up that Eri's quirk has the potential to reverse someone into a monkey, and on another side, Eri's quirk with some modification was able to revert someone's genetics to an unmutated form, even though Mirio has never personally experienced the non-mutated form. When you consider these things, you realize that Eri's quirk has the potential to be acting on a metaphysical level, reversing concepts and states. This may not be simple time rewinding, but instead something that masquerades as time rewind, or something that is similar and that the net effect looks like a time rewind. If we assume that Eri is rewinding states, and when I say states I mean the conceptual idea of Izuku being damaged and him not being damaged. If we assume this could explain how in a second Eri reverts Shizaki while Izuku is able to be under her aura for a long period of time while he wasn't being damaged without negative effects. This part though is all just a theory because it's kind of cool to think about. It would be very hard to actually substantiate this because to some degree Eri's power works as fast as the plot demands it to work. And then you can't count on the way that anime expands scenes. You know, a 5-minute battle turns into many episodes is the general joke. The next question is actually important. Can Nighteye see events that are directly caused by Rewind? The general theory requires that he can't. Here's the thing though. Nighteye saw Izuku grabbing Eri and them escaping to the surface. Here's my question. Would that event have happened if Eri didn't rewind Shizaki, separating him from Nemto? If Eri hadn't rewound Shizaki, she wouldn't have been able to jump. Izuku wouldn't have been able to grab her, and they wouldn't have been able to escape outside. That's my perspective on this one. Here we have an event, them escaping outside with Shizaki specifically chasing them, that Nighteye saw. The question is, can that event happen without Eri using Rewind? I think it's very unlikely given how that whole situation was going. The manga's narrative implies that Izuku would not have been able to catch up to Eri if she hadn't used Rewind on Shizaki. So my argument is, on the basis that Nighteye sees an event caused by Rewind, Nighteye should be able to see all events caused by Rewind. The condition here being that we're assuming that there was no other way for Shizaki to be in a situation where he specifically chases after the two. The reality is, Nighteye isn't surprised about Shizaki turning into a giant form. Nighteye is totally chill, which tells me that that was meant to happen up to that point. Now to cover the other rationales I've spotted, There was the rate of healing rationale. This one premises that Foresight couldn't see Izuku healing up so fast. So this one at its base jumps off from the idea that Foresight somehow can't see the effects of Rewind, except this one has the continuous nature. I don't feel this one is strong due to the reasons I outlined before. One thing I want to add before we continue moving forward is that I do find it funny how these rationales give so much power to Rewind. Why does Rewind have to be the one that causes a blip in the future? Why does it have to have that much effect? Why can't the future incorporate Rewind in it? Why can't the future account for Rewind? Rewind so far only affects living things, and heck, it doesn't even affect people's memories. No one that's been under the effects of Rewind has ever observed a lapse in their consciousness, even though they're being rewound to states that they would have had minutes ago. When you take that into account, Rewind seems to be an extremely localized effect. And at that point, I would ask you, what makes it any different from a healing quirk? If someone was to use a healing quirk repeatedly, would Foresight not keep up with that? Those are my own little doubts about the theory. We've seen how limited Rewind is in terms of what it can affect, and yet we're willing to say that it is the anomaly that changes the future. There was another point that said because Nighteye had not encountered Rewind before, he wasn't able to properly account for it. And honestly, that one doesn't make any sense to me in any way whatsoever. Nighteye uses his quirk to gain information that he doesn't know, such as when he got the layout of the underground base from tapping that random guy. This rationale also sounds like people are suggesting that the future doesn't know Rewind is in it, and they're also assuming that Foresight can't generate new information. Nighteye was the guy that was able to see a future where All Might is taken down by a villain. I'm sure he saw the effects of a quirk in that future. What it ultimately boils down to is how can Nighteye use Foresight to gain new information, but can't gain the new information of Rewind? Another one that I saw is Nighteye mistook Izuku as dead before Rewind affected him. Again, another really creative approach to this. Nighteye can see the surroundings around the person to a degree. I'm sure that when he saw Izuku dead, he saw Izuku conclusively dead and how Shizaki killed him. There is also the point that you have to bring up that Nighteye is probably focused on Shizaki when he was looking into the future. So that is something to keep in mind. Like, how exactly did he see Izuku dead? Did he see it over the shoulder of Shizaki? You know, like there is some doubt to be had here. This again relies on Rewind not being seen by Foresight, which I don't think is a really solid idea. There's one more angle that we can look at, but a question I have for viewers is, if Mirio ends up getting his quirk back due to Eri, and knowing that Nighteye apparently saw a future where Mirio is the finest hero, will that kill this theory of Eri mucking up the future, or do you think the continuous use is what does it? Now, the other angle I got is the narrative angle. The anime really reinforced the idea that it was Izuku that changed the future, and the anime did this a lot. Nighteye said he did it, Izuku said he was going to do it. Maybe it's the moment that Izuku asks for Eri's help that changes the future. Maybe it's the moment that Izuku activates a 100% one for all, because who knows what's capable at 100% one for all. So to close up, going back to Nighta's rhetoric, he says it's everyone wanting to change the future that does it, and we have that nice image of Izuku and Eri together. Maybe Eri and Izuku and everyone else through sheer willpower were able to divert the future so far that the future wasn't able to course correct. Because, you know, that doesn't seem impossible. So if you were to tell me that Eri was partly responsible for the change, I'd agree. But I wouldn't say that Rewind specifically is the confounding variable that changed it. I wouldn't say that it's because the nature of Rewind. I would be more willing to say it was Eri's willingness to use Rewind that changed it. And that makes sense with the narrative. Eri was a girl scared of herself, scared of her power, and imprisoned by Shizaki. But it's only through everyone's efforts, only when she remembers, that she takes that step forward. And then Izuku asks her to help. Remember, when it comes to Night-Eye's quirk, anyone can deviate the future slightly. Maybe this time it worked because everyone tried and it just went too far that it couldn't course correct. Anyway, I only have circumstantial evidence, but I do think it's more likely that the cause of the future change is in Izuku and the group as a whole. Back when this happened in the manga, someone also said that people coming together and focusing their wishes on Izuku is kind of like how One For All works, and that's another really good point that pushes more towards the One For All angle. But here we are, That's like the general theory. Overall, you know, it's just a matter of probability. The author can do whatever he wants. I just think it's more likely that Izuku's at the center of this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with suggesting that. And the reality is we don't know the implications of what happens when Izuku unleashes one for all 100%. And to just say that it's not one for all that was somehow responsible for it, I don't think that's a very wise choice at this stage in the game. But then again, it's also not very fair to just totally discredit the Eri angle, because the basic rationale is ultimately Rewind might be affecting time and that might have had an interaction with Foresight. And that's a good thought in of itself. It's just that there's some other little things that make it seem less likely. But really, if we just had more answers, if the author just told us where exactly the deviation started, this would be much easier to track down. And that's really the last feeling I want to give you guys. It's that we don't have concrete information for this one. We only have a bunch of choices and a bunch of probabilities. So let me know, what is your probability? Which one do you think is the most likely solution? Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Really enjoyed this one. And yeah, thank you to all the guys on the live stream who were also talking about this for a little while. Really appreciate that. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.